This incident took place when I was much younger, around the age of 10 or 11. During that period, my family lived in a smaller house near the city, and we often walked to nearby stores or gas stations for various errands. I frequently accompanied one of my older siblings on these outings, as there were several places within walking distance that we could easily reach. This particular incident occurred on July 11, a date I remember well because 7-Eleven used to give out free Slurpees on that day. I was thrilled when my older sister asked me if I wanted to join her in getting one. Of course, I eagerly agreed. We set off on foot, strolling along the sidewalk, which took us about 10 minutes. It was sometime in the afternoon, possibly even early evening, if my memory serves me right. Upon arrival, I made a beeline for the Slurpee machine, and my sister did the same. The store was fairly crowded, with a few other people milling about. Since someone was already getting a Slurpee ahead of me, I had to wait my turn. Once we both had our icy treats in hand, my sister ventured to the back of the store to browse other items, while I headed to a different aisle to see if there were any enticing snacks. It was in that aisle that I encountered a woman walking toward me, cradling a small dog in her arms. The adorable pooch immediately caught my attention, and the woman noticed my interest. She asked if I liked her dog, to which I enthusiastically replied with a resounding yes. I thought the furry little creature was incredibly cute. Seizing the opportunity, the woman then asked if I would mind watching her dog for a moment while she used the restroom. I agreed without hesitation. However, she had an additional request. Could I watch the dog outside instead? She explained that the dog sometimes didn't feel comfortable being held by strangers, and she didn't want to violate any store rules by walking it inside. I saw no issue with her proposal and readily agreed. Together, we stepped outside the building, and the woman made her way toward a small grassy area adjacent to the 7-Eleven. Although the space was quite limited, it seemed like a suitable spot for the dog to stretch its legs. But before we reached our destination, I noticed a van parked in the last parking space, right next to the grassy area. A man stood in front of the van, and suddenly, he reached out and grabbed hold of me as I passed by. His grip on my arms was tight, and the woman, who had been walking alongside us, instructed me to get inside the van. Its side door was already open. I felt an overwhelming sense of fear and resistance, but the man's strength was far greater than mine, and he forcibly pushed me in that direction. Everything was happening in a blur, and I found myself in a state of confusion and panic. However, amidst the chaos, I distinctly heard my sister's voice. She was yelling and screaming at the top of her lungs, demanding that they release me. Her outburst drew the attention of two other individuals nearby, who turned their gaze toward us. Finally, the man let go of me, and both he and the woman shifted their focus toward making their escape. I sprinted back to my sister, who was waiting just outside the front door of the 7-Eleven. As the man and woman quickly climbed into the van and sped away, I remember someone shouting for the police to be called and another person urging someone else to note down the license plate number. My sister and I retreated back into the store and waited until the police arrived. Eventually, our parents were called, and they rushed to pick us up. After providing our accounts of the incident to the authorities, we were left with a profound sense of fear and anxiety. Thankfully, later that day, the police managed to locate both the man and the woman involved. Reflecting on the incident still sends shivers down my spine. It's hard to believe that I narrowly escaped a kidnapping. The memory continues to haunt me to this day. In the fall of 2017, unsettling reports circulated about individuals masquerading as clowns and engaging in menacing behavior. However, preoccupied with my own challenges, I typically dismissed such stories. At the time, I was a 20-year-old mother struggling to cope with sleepless nights spent tending to my newborn. Given the wintry weather, my opportunities to venture outside were limited. Taking out the trash became my only respite, as the back door led me briefly into the fresh air. It was during one of these routine trash trips that I noticed something peculiar. Glancing to the right, I spotted footprints directly beneath the window of my baby's room. Curiosity piqued, I approached the window and observed hand indentations on the window screen. Though unusual, my baby slept in my room, so I initially felt little cause for concern. My boyfriend, however, was considerably more alarmed. Several days later, around 3 a.m., I found myself awake, attuned to the night's activities. A screeching howl echoed through the darkness, and although I attributed it to the local stray cats, I dismissed it without much thought. As daylight broke, I peered out the window and noticed a few sets of footprints that seemed perplexing. It appeared as though someone had been moving between the houses. Yet, considering the presence of a nearby drug house and past instances of trespassing, I dismissed the incident as unrelated to my personal safety. About 4 nights later, once again at 3 a.m., I found myself breastfeeding my baby. Suddenly, a scraping sound emanated from outside, seemingly against the side of our house. From my vantage point on the couch, I could see the back door, which featured a window covered by blinds and a deteriorating frame that failed to seal properly. I paused the television and focused on the noise, which now seemed to originate directly at the back door. Glancing in that direction, I caught sight of a looming figure, backlit by the moonlight, brandishing a large kitchen knife. Although the blinds obstructed my view, I could discern the ominous silhouette of the intruder. He ran the blade along the window panes before softly knocking. Instinctively, I contemplated the best course of action, mindful of my nursing baby. My phone lay in the bedroom, but an inexplicable sense urged me to keep the intruder within sight. Standing up and subtly repositioning myself, I avoided startling my child, making my way into the kitchen. Flicking on the lights, I summoned the courage to address the trespasser, speaking in a calm, measured tone. "Hey, man, I've already called the police. I'm sure you wouldn't want to face them, so I suggest you leave." I couldn't explain why I responded with such composure, as if engaging in a casual conversation. It seemed the intruder hadn't anticipated anyone challenging him, freezing upon hearing my voice. After a brief internal deliberation, he swiftly darted toward the nearby alleyway, disappearing into the night. Thankfully, I never encountered such a situation again, although my boyfriend expressed frustration that I hadn't awakened him or immediately contacted the authorities. Reflecting upon the incident, I realized the true extent of my unease once my sleep-deprived mind comprehended the gravity of the situation. Living in a tranquil rural town in Australia, I am fortunate to have a tight-knit group of 4 to 5 close friends with whom I spend a significant amount of time. However, one fateful day, an unexpected series of events unfolded that left us shaken to the core. Little did we know that the incidents would expose a startling secret lurking within our community. It all began when I was visiting my friends Alyssa and Mike, seeking an enjoyable afternoon together. The incident that occurred 2 days prior still haunted us, a peculiar occurrence where Alyssa's family returned home to wide open doors. Despite their steadfast commitment to home security in a town known for its rampant crime rates, such a breach was highly unusual and deeply unsettling. On that particular day, we gathered at Alyssa's house, indulging in the comforts of technology while engrossed in our phones. Suddenly, without warning, the front door violently banged open. We exchanged startled glances, attributing the incident to a forceful gust of wind. However, upon further reflection, we realized that the door's location within a sheltered area made such an explanation highly improbable. Our suspicions grew, but we dismissed them, determined not to succumb to irrational fear. Merely minutes later, the sliding back doors echoed with an unnerving slam, resounding through the house with a disconcerting intensity. We nervously brushed it off as a result of the elements, desperate to maintain our composure. However, the tranquility shattered when we heard unmistakable sounds emanating from within the house. Strange noises accompanied by the unsettling reverberation of footsteps on the creaky wooden floor. Alarmed, my intuition screamed that something was amiss. The unsettling thought that someone had previously infiltrated the house resurfaced, fueling my concern that the present events might be connected to the earlier breach. Acting swiftly, Alyssa and I instinctively rushed to the bedroom door, gripping it firmly as we desperately tried to safeguard ourselves. Compelled by the urgency of the situation, Alyssa suggested that we call the police. Initially hesitant, I realized that contacting the authorities was the only prudent course of action as an unknown force slammed into Alyssa's door, intensifying our fear. With trembling hands, Alyssa placed the distress call to emergency services, her words strained by the torrent of tears streaming down her face. The operator, patient and understanding, gradually comprehended the gravity of the situation. In a matter of minutes, police officers arrived at the scene, their presence a soothing balm to our frayed nerves. The officers exhibited commendable professionalism and empathy, gently inquiring about the sequence of events before uttering the unexpected words. We found the kid. Perplexed, I sought clarification, mistakenly assuming that they referred to the intruder responsible for the break-in. To my astonishment, the officers appeared equally bewildered, revealing that a 5-year-old child had gone missing. This revelation stunned us. We had been completely unaware of the ongoing search efforts that involved dozens of vehicles scouring the town and police officers knocking on doors for information. While grateful for their kindness, the officers' initial theory regarding the break-in was met with incredulity. They suggested it might have been a police officer searching for the missing child, albeit without proper announcement. Realizing the inconsistency of this statement, the officer promptly corrected himself, acknowledging the necessity for clear communication and identification. Upon reflecting on the incident and discussing it among ourselves, we arrived at a plausible explanation. It seemed that the individual who broke into Alyssa's house mistook her mother's departure, accompanied by 2 teenagers, as an indication that the house was unoccupied. Unbeknownst to the intruder, Alyssa's brother had a friend visiting, accounting for the presence of 3 individuals within the house that day. In conclusion, I fervently hope that the individual responsible for targeting my friend's house refrains from returning, a plea made with equal parts trepidation and determination. The experience was undeniably harrowing, serving as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance and community awareness in safeguarding our homes and loved ones. It was back in 2014 when I first met Art during high school. He struck me as a quiet but nice and easygoing guy. We quickly became close friends, and our bond grew stronger, akin to that of siblings. However, I soon learned that his childhood hadn't been smooth sailing. He had witnessed his parents argue endlessly, enduring years of strife. His mom's infidelity had also left a profound impact on him and their entire family. Despite this troubled background, he appeared quite ordinary when you first met him. Around 2016, I noticed a change in R's behavior. He became increasingly paranoid and often displayed a pessimistic outlook on life. Making friends was a challenge for him, and I wasn't much different in that regard. We relied on each other as our closest confidants. One day, I witnessed a strange panic attack. While at a restaurant, he suddenly bolted out and rushed to a nearby park, shouting at random people. It was an alarming experience, and I had to call his dad to come to pick him up. This incident had apparently happened before, indicating that something was amiss. Fast forward to June 2021, and R seemed to be doing all right. However, I sensed that he was still a bit off, not quite himself. I soon discovered the reason behind his distress. Several months prior, he had fallen deeply in love with a girl he met in college. Sadly, she turned him down when he asked her out, and then she blocked him on all social media platforms right after their graduation. The emotional blow had a tremendous impact on him, affecting his mental state significantly. It was during that summer that he had yet another episode, this time provoking someone who punched him in self-defense. His parents took him to the hospital, where he received an official diagnosis of schizophrenia. From late 2021 until now, I've observed R becoming quieter and exhibiting unusual behaviors. Although he still cracked jokes and could hold decent conversations, something about him was alarming. Recently, during the last 6 weeks, we hung out 3 times after a hiatus. It was during these hangouts that I noticed him giving me a peculiar, unsettling look. It was as if he had thoughts of violence or inappropriate intentions towards me. It made me feel uncomfortable and wary. Furthermore, R would often bring up the girl he loved from college, expressing deep-seated hatred and violent fantasies towards her. He even mentioned wanting to rape and kill her while knowing her whereabouts, which was chilling to hear. He went as far as admitting to parking outside her home and watching her multiple times in 2021. These unsettling incidents escalated further when he started insisting on hanging out with me several times a day. What alarmed me the most was how he seemed to know my exact location, always within 10 minutes of me being active on social media. He would refer to me as boyfriend and send heart emojis, which added to my unease. I started to fear his dependency and fixation on me, especially considering his violent thoughts towards the girl from college. I've been trying to be cautious and non-confrontational in my interactions with R. I'm aware that he is on medication, taking risperidone daily, and has been seeing a new therapist for about a month. However, I can't help but wonder if these treatments are genuinely effective. My concern and fear of retaliation prevent me from involving the police or informing the girl about R's thoughts. I worry about the safety of myself and my family if I take any action that could trigger him. As I find myself in a complex and unsettling situation, I desperately seek advice on how to approach this delicate matter and protect myself and those around me. I'm even apprehensive about posting this online, as I know he has had a Reddit account before. So, if you think it's best to delete this post to avoid any consequences, please advise me accordingly. Any help and guidance are greatly appreciated in this troubling situation. A few years back, I found myself working in a bustling yet perilous part of Rio de Janeiro. It was an area notorious for its numerous streets where local criminals would lie in wait, ready to pounce on unsuspecting pedestrians, snatch their belongings, and swiftly disappear into the shadows. One particular day, my work extended until 7 p.m., and my fiancé kindly offered to pick me up. As we stepped out onto the now deserted streets, we decided it would be safer to find a well-lit spot and order an Uber. Scanning our surroundings, we noticed two individuals stationed near the entrance of a store. One of them was a doorman, easily identifiable by his uniform, while the other wore casual attire and communicated via a walkie-talkie. Just a typical scene in Rio, or so we thought. Engaging in some idle chit-chat, the second man and I shared our observations about the inherent dangers of the area. Silence fell upon us, broken only by occasional glances and exchanged nods. As time passed and the Uber failed to arrive promptly, he grew increasingly curious, asking if I was certain about our ride's imminent arrival. Double-checking, I confirmed that it was indeed on its way. This seemed to satisfy his inquisitiveness, prompting him to divulge a rather disconcerting piece of information. You know, today is going to be an especially dangerous day. We're planning to take matters into our own hands and deal with these delinquents. As a police officer, it disgusts me. My heart skipped a beat, but I swiftly concealed any signs of unease. Vigilante groups, known as death squads, held a significant presence in Brazil, and a wise person would tread cautiously around such matters. Taking a deep breath, I decided to feign ignorance for my own safety. Are you a civilian or a military police officer? His lips curled into a smirk, and he replied cryptically, Today, I am neither. Time stood still for what felt like an eternity as I mentally processed his words. Sensing the urgency of the situation, we bid each other farewell and departed as soon as our driver arrived. The following day, a peculiar absence caught my attention. The area seemed noticeably devoid of its usual homeless population. It became apparent that they had wisely chosen to avoid being seen there. Curiously, news outlets remained silent on the matter, offering no reports or coverage of any unusual incidents. It was as though the events of that fateful day had slipped through the cracks, hidden from the public eye. While the truth behind those clandestine activities remained shrouded in mystery, One thing was clear. I had unwittingly stumbled upon a disturbing undercurrent that lurked beneath the surface of the city. An unwritten code of silence seemed to shield these shadowy activities from the light of day, leaving us to wonder about the extent of their influence and the implications for those who inadvertently found themselves entangled in such affairs. From that moment forward, I became acutely aware of the delicate balance between security and secrecy that existed within the city's underbelly. I navigated the streets with a heightened sense of caution, knowing that even in the seemingly mundane aspects of daily life, there may be concealed forces at play, and while the truth may never fully emerge, I remained vigilant, mindful of the unspoken truths that lay hidden in the shadows, forever altering my perception of the world around me.